John, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time coming. You and I met probably years ago at this point, I
Yeah.
imagine. Now, I
Yeah.
want to talk about our first informal introduction though. So, I'm going to take it back a little bit. And because I
Of
think
course, of course you're gonna go there. Of course.
I think it's just fascinating, right? So,
Yeah.
as people know that listen to the show, I host live events. And 2019, I was planning my event into 2020, and I lost my venue. This is even before COVID happened. So I lost my venue, and I was scrambling to find another one. And I ended up getting pointed to a local church that has, one of those fancy churches, lights, sounds, audio. So it's all built in. I'm like, I'll just do it here. And I knew the pastor there at the time, and I had it locked in. During that time, there was a switch. He moved to a different church within the organization, and they switched to a new pastor. And he's like, "Hey, it'll be no problem. Like, I'm sure he'll be fine with doing it." And I sent you an email. I was like, "Hey, John, nice to meet you. I want to hold the event there." And you replied, "Nope, we can't do it." And obviously, you were much more formal than that. But that was actually our first introduction, and it also brings me to the point where I want to start with you, how you started in ministry. So, talk a little bit about Jon Beebe at that point in your life, and how bad you felt saying no to me.
Yeah. Well, this is a great way to start a podcast, Justin. And for those listening, welcome and hang on to your seats. We got a good ride here. But hey, so I was a youth pastor for a long time. Did that for 12 years. And then for 2 years, I was a campus pastor at the last church I worked at. The last church I worked at was 9 years. I was a church in Pennsylvania called LCBC. Worked there for 7 years as a youth pastor and then 2 years as a campus pastor. Those 2 years was when I met you, Justin. It was at the beginning of those 2 years. I moved from a town called Schwanksville. I was working at the location in Harleysville, and I moved up to the location here in Berks County. That one was in Leesport near Reading. And when I moved up here, I took over as the campus pastor, which it would be like more of a senior pastor at a single location church, but this was multi-location. So I was leading there, brand new to the role. Had been a youth pastor, like I said, for like 12 years. So this senior role was very new to me. And when I came into that role, they told me, "Hey, while you're taking over this role, we don't want you to take on anything outside of your normal responsibilities. Like Sunday morning things, like the things that we have to run. We want you to focus on those for at least like 6 months to a year, so you can get things under your belt and you know what you're doing. So that way you're actually pulling off the job we want you to do, and then you can start adding other things at that point." So that was when that happened shortly before I had that email from you, and that came in from you. I had emails from other people that were coming in, and I just had to, as kindly as possible, say like, "Hey, while I'd love to be a part of this, I think it's really cool what you're doing, Justin. It's just not going to work for us right now in this season." And I had no idea the backstory of all the franticness that puts you into. But at the end of the day, I had to do what I needed to do. So I sent that email. You and I went back and forth a little bit, wished you the best. And then it was kind of like out of mind, out of sight, because then I like hit the ground running, trying to figure out how to be a campus pastor, what that meant, new leadership role. And, and then COVID hit after that. So it was just out of mind, out of sight. You kind of left my mind. And then, fast forward to when we met in person. I think you want to talk about that too.
Yeah, of course. And so we have a mutual friend in Andre Young, and he's been on the show, I think, twice, and he's spoken at my events. And so people are familiar with who he is. And Andre's like, "Hey, I'm having a couple guys over. I'm just going to shoot pool and have a cigar," or whatever the case may be. And so I went over there, and Andre introduced me to you, and you were the one who pointed out who you were. Because I probably would, like, you talk about, like, as things move on, I was like, all right, out of sight, out of mind, got to go find the next space. And you introduced yourself as to who you were. And I think right off the bat, that gave me um, a massive amount of respect for you, because I think a lot of people would have avoided that at all costs. But I think it speaks to who you are in your life as a father, as a business owner, as a leader. And so let's talk a little bit about the role of leadership and accountability and holding yourself accountable. Now, is that something you learned in the church? Is that how you were raised? What's the background there that you're organically somebody who owns up and says, "This is who I am"?
I just always want to be a person that is kind, that respects other people. And at the end of the day, I heard a leader once say this, that people aren't going to respect a leader or follow a leader that's always right. They want to lead and follow one that's always real. So I'm like, hey, if I screw up, make a mistake, if I get put in an awkward moment, guess what? I'm going to own it. And I remember coming up to you being, after I met you, I walked away. I'm like, I think that's the guy. And then I'm like, almost immediately I turned around and went up. I said, and you were like, yep, that's me. And it was like, And, we had the conversation, but the whole thing there was like, hey, I'm not going to hide who I am. And, if there's an awkward moment, I'm going to own it. And at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily my fault that I was in that situation. It was my leaders, my leadership asking me to do that. But I think just owning that, I think in all of our lives, if we can own our mistakes, guess what? Nobody's perfect. If you are, you're lying, so you're not perfect. So there you go. There's an imperfection there. But at the end of the day, I just want to be the best person I can be and care for humanity. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do, regardless if I like you, don't like you, or understand what you're going through or don't understand. I want to try to understand it, try to, get to know you a little more. And I just think that's important to do.
Yeah, and then obviously after all this, you end up leaving the church to join something that your wife started, and it's now grown into a movement and a massive community of people online. I want to talk a little bit about that transition for you personally. What was that like, leaving a steady job, a steady paycheck, to then jump ship, and now you have two people with 3 daughters running a household as entrepreneurs going full force. Let's talk a little bit about that community and what it was like for you personally to make that jump.
Yeah. So when I made the jump, at that point, we've been married now 16 and a half years. We were married 14 years at that point, had 3 daughters, steady job. Like I said, I'd been working at the church for 9 years. I was like really excited to like make it to 10 years at a company I was working for. So that was like on the horizon coming up. And, my wife's business started taking off, especially during COVID. We do affiliate marketing through our company called Bebe's Bargains. We save people a bunch of money there. What we do there is find best deals online and post them to all of our sites and stuff. But we're doing that. And then because of COVID, that blew up because everyone started shopping online more. There was a big, influx of business we started getting. So we had to say, man, we got to get our stuff in order here in order to be able to, have this be sustainable growth and move forward. We had to start hiring people. It was just a lot was going on. So I started pouring a ton into the business because my wife started really struggling a lot with anxiety, because when she started this business was more of like it was a little extra money. She's like, I'd love to make a little extra money so we can someday own a single family home and travel more, AKA go to Disney more. And so that was why she started it. And it was like a hobby almost, for her to do some things and also help some people. She loves helping people and serving people. She's a behind the scenes person. You're never really going to see her on podcasts and things like that, but she works real hard and she serves people. So we did that. But then it started really being a significant part of our income because we were able to buy a single family home. We were able to travel more. And it just, when you start making money, a little extra money, you say, I'm not going to rely on it, but you naturally drift into relying on it. So that happened. And it started like bringing her a lot of anxiety where she wasn't sleeping much. She was losing weight. And, my wife, she doesn't, weigh
She
that
has no
much.
weight to lose.
She's like 100 pounds soaking wet. So, she started losing weight and she wasn't healthy. So I had to start asking myself some questions. And what I decided was, hey, I want to start pouring more into the business to help relieve some of the stress from you, which I did that. But then what happened was when we saw the stress go down from that, we also saw the anxiety and stress start going up because then I'm working as a pastor full time, which, you're on call 24/7. You also have your normal office hours, things like that. And then I get, and now I'm running a business at night. So I wasn't really present there. So we had to decide, what are we, present at home because I'm running the business. We had to make a decision then, what are we going to do? And I really felt, prayer is something important to me. So I really felt like in my gut that through like peace, through some, prayers I was praying and things like that, I felt that I should make a decision that was different than what I've been doing my whole life. And that decision was, hey, my wife's been like adjusting for me for the past 14 years while I'm saying I did work at 3 different churches through my career as a pastor. And, we lived in 3 different states, and she had went with me wherever I was going. And I at that point felt like I was being told, hey, it's time to flex a little bit for your wife and to give her some stability. Because if I said, well, we can't really do much with the business and move away from that, we would have to, maybe adjust what our living looked like if we couldn't continue the business. And I said, you know what, I'm not willing to do that right now. I think I'm supposed to flex for my wife, to care for her, and maybe call it being a pastor to my family more, and investing more in them, and then in the people we serve through our businesses. Because I think pastor's really just all about serving people, regardless of trying to change their mind or get them to believe like you. It's really just about service, and that's really what I was about. So I said, how about we do that? I talked to Lauren about it, and she wasn't necessarily for it completely. And then after about a month, usually when we're going to make a big decision, we talk to each other, and then we say, hey, let's take a month off and not talk between the two of us. And then let's come back after a month and see where both of us land. And we've done that a number of times in our marriage. And we took some time off from talking about it together. And whether we prayed, reflected, thought about it, whatever that was, we came back a month later, and it was actually, I came to her, and she knew I was going to be okay with it. She came to me and she said, hey, I'm good. I think you should step away. I'm good with that now. And she felt peace about it and thought it was the right move. So I made that decision fully based on some personal stuff happening in our life, and it was really tough because, like I said, I like being able to like do good things and accomplish things, and thinking of getting to like 10 years at the church, thinking of like all the things that, people I was helping, caring for, the community there that I had. But then at the end of the day too, our business's mission statement at that point was, we want to save people time and money so they can engage more with those they love. And we realized, man, we're not living that out in our family, and we're not walking with integrity in there. So we're like, man, you go back to that character thing you talked about. I'm like, this was a move like saying, hey, we want to, with integrity, live that out if we're trying to help other people with that. If we say that's valuable to other people, that needs to be valuable to us, and we should be living it out. And if we're not living it out, then why are we trying to push other people towards that if it's something we don't live out?
Yeah. Was there internal struggle just leaving the church in general? I know a lot of pastors who at a very young age decided they wanted to be a pastor, and it was their mission and their purpose in life to then really go after. Was there an internal struggle from the Christianity standpoint to go, well, I'm leaving this thing that I believe was my calling, to now all of a sudden there's this new calling?
And I think that's a great way you put it, because I did feel like it was a calling. And when I first went into it, I thought this was a calling for the rest of my life. But what's weird is faith is a journey. You and I had having a lot of conversations over that, whether sitting at Mission Barbecue chatting or whatever, but faith is a journey. And I think if you're not willing to shift and change your beliefs, I'm not saying change everything and, jump ship and just keep running all over the place, but to let your beliefs and thoughts evolve, that I think it's dangerous if you don't, because you get locked into something. And, if you still believe what you did when you were like 8 years old, where would you be today? So I think as you get older, you still have to be willing to shift and change. And really, I think the best word to say is evolve, because it doesn't just change from one thing to the next, like black and white. It's a slow evolution of what you're thinking are and where you're going based on your circumstances, based on, what you're learning and things like that. So it was tough because I did feel like that. But then I also realized that why it might have been tough more was a little bit of a pride thing, because I was working at one of the top 10 largest churches in the country. I was in one of the highest levels of leadership as a campus pastor. There wasn't much over us, and there wasn't more than, a dozen and a half campus pastors. So it was like a pride thing. Like I had arrived, I was at this church, and not that I wanted it. No, you don't even want to say that, honestly. It feels icky saying that, but it was there because I'm like, man, I don't want to say I had arrived, but I'm like, I had always, when I started reflecting, I was going to be stepping away from this. I'm stepping away from something that I had dreamed about going through college. And not that I never thought I'd get there, but I'm not as big on myself, like meaning like through some of the stuff I went through in my past that, about, I didn't have good high self-esteem. So like for me to get there was a huge deal. Like I almost thought like I was like tricking everybody. Like there was a point in my life where I'm like, man, I'm in this role, but I don't deserve to be in this role. And through like therapy and stuff in the last few years and things like that, I've realized that it's not like, it's okay to think and tell yourself truths about yourself that are good. What's the word? Humility is not thinking less about yourself, not thinking less of yourself, but it's really thinking less about yourself. So you gotta think highly of yourself, but you just don't want to dwell on that. So that was a tough thing. And when I finally like got past that and realized that, man, I think one of my biggest struggles was if I didn't step away, it was going to be a pride thing, less of the calling thing. And I probably would have played it off as like a calling thing to try to act humble, maybe, if you want to say that, because sometimes we try to do that and we're internally fighting it. But if I'm honest, my biggest struggle was, hey, I was going to get to 10 years at one of the largest churches in the country and in one of the highest leadership positions. And I'm like, man, this is a big deal. I'm stepping away now. I'm becoming like, start running a company from my basement. I'm sitting in my basement. Like, I'm not in front of hundreds of people every week on a stage, talking to them and walking into a building and everybody knows me and they're coming to me for advice. Like, that was a big internal struggle to say, I'm going to step away from that amount of influence, because I had a lot of influence within that organization.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're sitting in your basement now and thousands of people are listening to you. Right. So I think there's different ways in life to create impact, and to continue a mission, whatever the messages that you're meant to deliver at this very time. I think there's just different vehicles. Right. And so
True.
I'm somebody who observes a lot. I enjoy sitting back and just paying attention when people don't know that I'm paying attention. I believe it's a superpower of mine to be able to read individuals. And so you're somebody who I've become really good friends with. You've joined my mastermind. So we've spent a lot of time together. We're two grown men who went to Epcot together, and Hollywood Studios. We hopped that day, didn't we? So I think we went to two parks. And
I might have held your hand on a roller coaster if I was scared. I don't remember. No.
Two grown men just hanging out in Disney World together. It was normal. I swear, it was totally.
And we were group texting our wives, and they were like, "We're home working, and you're at Disney World." Like, what the heck?
It's very true. It's very true. But the one thing I mean, a number of things that I've seen from you, but the one thing I really noticed is your dedication to being a family man. Your dedication to being a really good father who empowers his daughters, somebody who supports his wife and empowers her and wants to be a good husband. Where do you think that comes from in your life? That that's such an important thing for you?
I mean, like I said before, I just feel like respecting people and loving people is part of humanity's mission. There's too many people out there doing the opposite. And also just like, I'm the only one that could be Lauren's husband. I mean, obviously, if we separated, somebody else can marry her, but I'm the only one that could be her first husband. I'm the only one that could be my kid's father. Somebody can step in and take on that dad role, which you've done a great job with that with your kids, which is awesome. But, I'm here and I'm the only one right now that can do that. So like, when I think about that, to be honest, like I talked about losing influence and stuff like that. The most important place that you need to have influence is in your house. With my daughters, not influence to control them, but influence to love them. Like if I'm not giving them the love they need and they're getting it someplace out in the world, I don't know who's giving it to them. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But to me, I'm like, I want to have influence in my kids' life. Influence, again, not to control them, but influence to love and care for them and give them part of me. And to be honest, growing up, I didn't get the positive love, affirmation that any kid should get. There were things said to me that should have never been said to anybody, let alone their son, their child. And, because of that, I want to not repeat that pattern in my family's history. It's in my family's lineage of situations like that. I don't want to repeat that. So I've had to work tirelessly on myself so I'm not that person. Do you know what's crappy? I'll just be open with you and honest a little bit. I was on a podcast. I don't even know if I shared this with Lauren yet. So this is going to get vulnerable here. Like I was on a podcast a couple months ago. And the lady who introduced me, she said, and I didn't hear the introduction. She recorded it before, and when I heard the podcast episode, I heard it. And her introduction was like, this is I'm about to interview one of the kindest people I've ever met. And you know what? When I heard that, I kind of felt like a fraud. When I heard that, because I shared this with my therapist. I told her, I said, I kind of felt like a fraud. And she said, why? I said, well, because the night before I had just like blew up on my daughter a little bit and we got into an argument and I wasn't kind to her like I could have been. Like I didn't handle myself like I could have been. And she said, Jon, so let me ask you, what's somebody, what do you want to be known for? Like, what does kindness look like to you? And I talked through it and she said, okay, so do you think somebody that's not kind, like one time, that nullifies them from being considered a kind person, a nice person, a caring person? And I said, well, no. And she said, well, why are you discounting yourself? Why are you feeling like a fraud with that? And I said, I don't know. And she said, you have to give yourself more credit and understand that you're going to screw up, but that doesn't mean you're not a kind person. How do you respond? How do you come back from that mess up? And when I say this, I don't, it doesn't happen all the time with my daughters, but they're teenagers now, and two of them are, well, one of them is, one's a preteen, but like understanding that that's just sometimes part of life, and you got to do your best, and it's not how you react. If you react in the moment wrong, you always have a chance to come back and re-react again in a different way. But honestly, Justin, I felt like a fraud there, and I didn't like that. And I'm finally now starting to be able to hear that and say, okay, that is me, or that I don't have to feel bad about that. But back to the whole family thing, is I don't want to hurt the people that I love the most, and I do sometimes, and it eats at me when I do.
It's a powerful statement. And therapy is the best, dude. Like,
Uh,
it's amazing, especially when you find the right therapist. That's the key.
yes.
So anybody listening, if you're like, I've been to therapy, it sucks, just go again. Go find somebody new. Keep trying until you find the right person. Because when I found the right person to be my therapist, it was a game changer, right? Because
Yeah.
there's certain people out there that match perfectly with you and know how to address what you're going through. And it's just so powerful, man. And so you talk about, you had low self-esteem, throughout your life, and you didn't think you deserve the things that you were able to achieve in your life and now continue to achieve. And I'm seeing somebody who's confident, who is the face of this large company that continues to grow exponentially. Where did the lack of confidence come from, or lack of self-esteem come from for you? I know you mentioned your parents a little bit, but I'd like to get into the weeds with that. And then
Yeah.
also, what do you, and I know that's a work in progress and that's okay, but
Yeah.
I want to know, like, what was the shift for you to realize that, no, I am deserving of this? Because I think a lot of people need to hear this. I think it's an important thing for people to hear.
Yeah. So for me, where did that come from? I think of, I want to clarify with this. So for whoever's listening, even people I'm, communicating about here, my situations, if anybody's listening, I love everybody. Like, I even love my parents, my family, but there's a point when if you can love somebody from a distance, you can respect somebody from a distance, and sometimes relationships aren't healthy, for you or that other person, the other party. And to hold it at a distance, sometimes that distance is, 5 feet, sometimes that distance is 10 miles, and you don't have any communication with them. But I feel like it's important. So I just want to say this up at the front, is to say that I don't wish any harm on anybody. And I had to learn through therapy too, that I used to think if I would say anything about the situation, that it was considered gossip. But what I've realized is, and that was part of the control that was ingrained in me as a kid, part of the hate control. Like, if you say anything about it, it's almost like, and I feel like I went, from what I've been told by professionals, I went through mental, emotional abuse. And, you know, at the hands of the person that would do that to you, they would say, oh, if you tell anybody, like, it's actually on you then. And it almost makes you feel guilty. So I've learned through therapy that some of the things are my truth, and it's my opportunity to talk about it. And anybody that's out there that's went through anything, any type of pain or abuse from anybody, I want you to know that is your truth. That is your truth, and you are allowed to talk about it. Now, talking about it in a healthy way is important. You have to get past the bitterness. If you're talking about it to slander and put people down and be mean about it, like, that's not healthy. That's not healthy for you. And not only is it not healthy, it's considered gossip and it's slander, and you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to push that. You got to have the right mindset to talk about it. And I wasn't able to talk about it for a long time. So talking about it now, I just think of things when I was a kid. I remember getting made fun of if I apologized for anything in my family. Like, if I would be like, oh, I'm sorry, they'd be like, oh, there's John, Mr. I'm sorry. He's going to apologize for everything. And I can remember on my hand, probably on one hand, I can count like the multiple times this parent apologized to me ever in my whole life. And then I can remember moments in my life where I would do something, and maybe I was at a situation, and I would get yelled at for something, and punished, to the point that, I got a bloody lip, and from the person that was punishing me. And then the one parent stepped in and said, and comforted me. And then 20, or what was it, like 20 minutes later, they come back to me and they say, how dare you do that and disobey your parent to get me in a fight with that parent. Wow. So the two of, it's like they comfort me and then they're back telling me that I was wrong. So like when we're talking about that low self-esteem, it's like, oh, I felt like, man, I didn't do anything wrong. But then when I come back and I'm like, wait, you told me I did I was fine and you were going to protect me. And then you come back and say that was all your fault. It's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's talking about. Talk about whiplash. Like that was tough. And I remember there as a older teenage boy weeping in my room, not understanding how somebody who can love me could, first of all, let the other parent treat me like that, and then console me, and then come back a half an hour later and say, how dare you pitch me against your parent and get me into a fight with your, with the other parent. And it was things like that that just ate me up. I remember I'm not good at spelling. I've self-diagnosed myself as dyslexic. I could barely say the word. So I've self-diagnosed myself with that. My 8-year-old could probably spell better than me. Thank God for like Chat GPT and Grammarly and those things. Shout out to all those.
Autocorrect on text, man.
Woo. Yeah. Well, it's really bad when autocorrect doesn't even know what you're saying. So that's really tough. But that's me. So if you have any of those things that can, you can overcome them, and there's stuff out there. But that said, I can remember taking a spelling test, getting 1 or 2 words wrong out of like 20, which would be an 80%. And then I can remember my dad telling me, all right, write all the words, not even just that word, all the words 20 times in a row. And then I take the test again and I get it wrong. And it got to the point where one night it went on for 3 or 4 hours and I'm up to writing all the words 500 times in a row.
Oh my gosh.
For one spelling test. And this went on for a week because I was bad at spelling. And it wasn't like, hey, there's maybe an issue here. It's like, no, you're not good enough. It's not like, oh, well, you tried your best and there needs to be something else. No, you should just get that. So just that not good enough stuff. I mean, those are just a couple stories of just things I've went through, but I could probably sit here for 6 hours and tell you stories. But again, the goal isn't the stories, but the goal is that's where I was feeling not worth it. Low self-esteem. I would, I was always curious. So I'd ask a lot of questions and I'd get called Mr. Question Man. Like that was, they would call me Mr. Smooth because I'd spill things here or there, spill milk or whatever at the table. And I remember them making fun of me, my family, where it became a family joke where John's Mr. Smooth. And it's like, it hurt because it's like, then they'd do the same thing I did. And I'd try to do the Mr. Smooth joke or whatever. And it would be like, no, you do it all the time. And it was always, just this bullying. And if it wasn't bullying, it was this weird manipulation of like, oh, I'm sorry that you went through that. Oh, it was your fault kind of thing. Like, I'm sorry about that. So I don't know if you have any deeper questions about that, but it was rough, man.
Yeah, man. I think, how did you really begin to take back your power? Really quick, by the way, I just want to share when you talk about, I got an 80% on the test. I got a 32% on a vocabulary test in high school one time, and nobody said anything to me. So if you like, and I feel like on the flip side of things, right? I think if your kid's doing that poorly, you should probably say something. But my parents were like, oh, okay, whatever, Exactly. And then we were able to move on. But a 32, that you got to try to get that score.
Well, my dad thought like, what's going to be on the test, so you should be able to ace this. Like I would get 70s and 80s and he would be okay with that. But he's like, what's going to be on this test. You need to ace it.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So anyway, as I was saying before I went on my rant of my 32%,
great job.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. How did you begin to take back your power from that type of situation? Because I also, in my life, I didn't talk to my dad for 7.5 years because it wasn't a healthy relationship. Now it's a great relationship, but for 7.5 years, I didn't talk to him. So how did you begin to take back your power?
Interesting you say that. This Sunday, 7 years since I spoke with them. It's weird those dates stick in your head, but this happens to be my youngest daughter's first birthday is when they left and blew up and left her birthday party and caused a huge scene and whatever. So that being said, when did I start to take it back? I think now, as I've been able to reflect more, the one word is Lauren, is my wife. When I met Lauren and started dating her, when I was engaged to her, I broke up with her at one point because my parents said she wouldn't be a good submissive wife. So you should break up with her based on some situations that were happening. So I broke up with her. I went and drove from Buffalo. I lived in Buffalo at the time. That's where I grew up, and go Bills. So I lived in Buffalo, drove all the way to Philadelphia where she lived, which I now live near here. She lived in a town called Levittown, and drove there one day just to win her back. Like literally drove there to ask her to forgive me and bring me back, take me back, and was literally there for a couple hours and then drove right back home to make it right with her. So that starting my relationship with her and then getting married and then watching like through our life, she had so much patience with me and even with my family. I let my family treat her in ways that I shouldn't have, and it wasn't until 7 years ago till I said, I've had enough with this. I've watched you treat my wife like this. I've watched you treat my daughters like this. Like it came to a point where my daughters were crying when they were causing a situation. And I'm like, I've watched this happen. I can't, for the sake of my kids, for the sake of my wife, I need to step back. And what's weird is if you ask them, I'm sure if you asked them the same situation, like why, Jon's not there, I'm sure Lauren would come up a lot, because I've been told through voicemails to my face that I'm my wife's puppet. They've told me, they've told me, mom's right. You're nothing but your wife's little bitch.
Wow.
And and I'm like, are you kidding me? And so when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, she's the reason. She didn't cause any, the reason they would give would be something else, but she's the reason that I realized the truth. And with me, I believe, God used her, you call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. I believe God used her to show me the truth. And she is a patient woman. She's tremendously patient with me. I mean, I'm talking serious here, but I can just be a complete goofball, Justin. You know that. And Lauren is so patient with me. She lets me tell all the dad jokes and just act like a fool. But
both of our women married children.
Both
of our wives married children. I said women. Both of our wives married children. It's just true.
By the way, Justin's real on his podcast, guys. With those of you that are listening, he's real. But when you get him outside of the podcast, he is a stinking goofball. So he's not masking himself here. He just knows what setting, to be in. But if you get to hang out with Justin ever outside of this room, he is outside of podcasts. I say this room because I feel like podcasts are almost like you get into a room. But he's a real fun guy to hang out with. But that being said, Lauren, she's a great woman, and she helped me get through all of that, and I couldn't be more thankful for her and who she is. And and then obviously she started the business that was just a hobby, and it blew up. And it's like, man, I have so much to credit her to. She's not the face, so she doesn't get all the accolades and stuff. And she's always like, well, you didn't really start it. I kind of did. And I'm like, well, you did. I know. But I'm like, you're not out there talking about it. So I have to talk about it because you did such great stuff. And sometimes some of the credit to the beginning of it gets equated to me because just I'm the one that's talking about it. But it is you, honey. Like, you killed it. And, so I look at that and say, people in your lives that speak truth to you that you don't always want to hear, listen to it. And if you get mad in the moment when they tell it to you, reflect on it later and listen back to it, because she helped me through the years. And that was 7 years. We've been married 16 and a half years. So that means 9 years of our marriage, and the couple of years we were engaged and dating before that, she put up with this stuff. Yeah. Like, literally, when we were engaged, my mom decided, because she got upset at her for something, that she wasn't going to host her what's it called? Bridal shower. Yeah, because we lived in different places. So there's going to be a bridal shower in Buffalo, a bridal shower in there. And I totally forgot about this. But she was literally like, yeah, I don't like that she did that. She's a little BI. I'm not going to host the bridal shower here now. She's not thankful. She's not thankful. She's not grateful for what I'm doing for her. So I'm just not going to host the bridal shower here. And she didn't have it. And my wife didn't have a bridal shower with my side of the family, my friends, or anything like that.
Wow.
And I'm just like I forgot about a lot of these things. But then going through therapy, I realized that I am I'm a better person because of it. I'm a better person because of trials. I heard a leader say this once. I don't remember who it was, so I guess I'm saying it now, is that problems equal solution, or problems equal solutions or opportunities to grow. So whenever you see a problem in your life, immediately you should think solution or opportunity to grow. That's what you should think of. So like one of our staff values we have as a staff on our team right now is we say, don't live in problems, but look for solutions. Like, yeah, you got to say, yeah, there's an issue here. There's a problem. It's disappointing, whatever, but don't live there. Acknowledge it. Yes, but don't live in it. Immediately turn your attention to what's the solution? How can I grow from this? And I'll just tell you, every problem I went to, whether it be rupturing my Achilles, I've done that, playing football as a youth pastor. So it was a football injury. So I could say if with a football injury, I ruptured my Achilles. And I got workers' comp from it too, which is funny. Or yeah, it was covered under workers' comp. So all that, but whether it be the situation with my parents, whether it be losing a baby when we were newly married, whatever problem we went through, whatever heartache we went through, we grew like crazy from it. And I would say this, you can grow. You don't always grow when problems get there, because sometimes you get bitter, you live in them, and then you don't even learn how to talk about them properly. And you talk about them with a negative, very, bitter attitude. So I would encourage anybody through any problem you go through, look at it first. How am I going to grow through this? I mean, obviously you're going to live through it first. Let yourself feel all the feelings, if it's grief, go through all the stages of grief and all that, but then start saying, what's the solution here? Or how am I supposed to grow from this?
I love it, man. So obviously, look, Lauren started this business, giving credit where credit's due, and it's so true. And you were able to come in and put some systems into place, and now you get out there and you talk about it and you do all those things. How many people now, just so people are aware, when we talk about building community, how many people are in this Facebook group now?
So our Facebook group has 66,000. We just went past 66,000. For the last year, we've been growing on average about 750 members a month. And this year we're on pace to do just over 5 million in affiliate sales. So when I say we've grown a lot, and it's been really cool to see that grow.
That's incredible, man. And so that's it, guys, if you're into deals, saving money, all that things, Bebe's Bargains on Facebook. You can look in the show notes of how to spell it, but go check it out. Go join the Facebook group. And then from there, you've been able to go on, and now you're helping other people build communities through coaching. And you have your own travel company called Bebe's Dreamcation.
Yes.
So
it used to be Bebe Travel, but we are rebranding that to Bebe's Dreamcation. So yes.
So what made sense for you to get into travel and coaching?
So when we started our business, I heard this philosophy once, think of like a wheel or a spoke, a hub. And when you start a business, then when you want to do other business and stuff, instead of like starting another full wheel over here, something completely different, find ways where you can launch either businesses or revenue streams off of that said business that you started that's been successful. So we looked at that, and we looked at our mission for that, as we want to save people time and money so they can engage more with those they love. And then we started saying, well, first of all, we got into deals because we love deals. I mean, growing up, we loved when we were first married, we got into deals because my wife was a super couponer. When we first got married, we'd leave the grocery store with like $300 worth of products for like $15.20, but we didn't care. We had like $50 or $100 worth of dog food, even though we didn't have a dog. We didn't care. It was free. So, but you know what I mean? So we thrive off finding deals, and we realized that we could save people money with that, help families out. And that just really brought us joy. And then we said, what else do we like doing that brings our family joy? And it's our trips to Disney World, because not just because of Disney World, it's really just anywhere you can travel. But for us, it was Disney, and it was like getting away with our family, getting that undivided attention. As a pastor, when I would travel from there, I'm like, I turn off my phone. I'd be distraction free. And that brought our family so much value. So when we thought of our business mission statement is we want to save people time and money so that they can engage more with those they love. And we're like, man, we're saving them time and money on all these products. Why don't we help them engage more with those they love through travel? And for us, it was Disney, because that's where we go. So right now, that's my sole focus, is I help people book trips to Disney World. I could do all things to all people and try to book all things all over the world, which I did that at first when I was a travel agent. I actually helped you go over to Rome and Ireland and stuff like that. And it was a really cool trip.
Yeah, you booked our honeymoon, which was cool.
I did. So I stalked you, the whole time. It was great. No. So yeah, but I did that. But what I realized is that wasn't my sole business. So I realized I had to step back and reevaluate and say, hey, I can't be all things to all people in the travel world, because that's not the only thing I'm doing. If that was the only thing I'm doing, I would figure that out, but I'm doing other things. So I stepped back and I said, hey, I got to reevaluate this. And we went from Bebe Travel then to now Bebe's Dreamcation. And we're really about helping people create their dream vacations to Disney World. That's what we're doing. Will I explore other Disney destinations? I'm sure that'll happen, but I'm just getting the systems in place now for this. So it just made sense for us to move over there. And then we were able to use our community with Bebe's Bargains to now help launch the community for our travel company. And now what we're all, and we also incorporate affiliate links there, help people like with whether it be packing lists and things like that, just to help them and encourage them to save money. And then the other thing is now with coaching, I had so many people coming to me that I was just coaching, without anything going on. So I said, why don't I create, because someone's like, hey, can you teach me affiliate marketing? Can you teach me how to build a community? Can you teach me like, what's the first thing I need to do with starting a business? And I had so many people coming to me and DMing me and stuff that I was like, maybe there's something here. And really, since stepping into that role of leading workshops, I just finished a workshop up in September into October, and now I'll be doing one in December again. But like, when I think of those things I do, the first time I think I text you, Justin, the first time after I got out of one of my coaching sessions, and I'm one-on-one coaching a lady now too, who's starting a business. It's awesome. And, got another gentleman who's starting up next month. So when I first got out of the first session, I remembered it was like, I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was serving people. I was helping people. And what's interesting is when I business coach people, it's not just business. Sometimes business overlaps with family or personal life. When I say sometimes, more times than not, it does. So I'm able to also help them, in life as well, and just help them have a great, outlook on stuff. And it brings me joy. And when I stepped out of that, when I stepped out of that first session, I realized as a pastor, I would help mentor and care for people. And now I'm getting to do that in the business world outside of the church world. And to be honest, inside the church world, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. A lot of people want you to be a certain thing. They want you to think a certain way. They want you to believe a certain way. They want you to have a certain political thoughts. They want you to have all these certain thoughts that expectations on you. In the world I've stepped in now, not as many people have expectations on me like that. They just want me to serve them, care for them, and help them. So I feel like there's a little less pressure to have to try to be something that I'm not, and I can be who I am now, which is really awesome. It's been a blessing.
Love it, man. I love it. So before I get to my final question, I've got a rapid fire and we'll get to the important stuff. But real quick, Disney World rapid fire for you. What is your favorite park?
Favorite park? I have to say Magic Kingdom for nostalgic reasons. I can't not say that.
That's fair. Favorite ride?
Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, a favorite ride in the entire world. That's what that is to me.
It's a great ride. Favorite place to eat in all of Disney World?
Boathouse at Disney Springs.
I love it, man.
And shout out to the server, Ricky there. He's awesome. Ricky and TJ.
Shout out to Ricky. I met him as well. You were able, for our mastermind, you were able to set up a reservation for us to all go have dinner there. It's something really, really special. And I think that's just a really, really cool thing. So shout out to those guys at the Boathouse. We're going to be eating Thanksgiving dinner there.
We are.
And so that's
people know where to find us on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it'll be good. So by the way, my family and his family, we're having Thanksgiving dinner together at Boathouse, Disney Springs. Come say hello. And then obviously, what's your favorite nighttime spectacular that they create?
It is Happily Ever After, hands down. Best one ever. Magic Kingdom.
Without a doubt, dude. I love it. By the way,
so that was gone for like it shut down after COVID, and they brought back a different show, and then they reintroduced that show again. And when we got to see it for the first time after it came back, I cried. It was like right when the first note hit, my wife and I looked at us. We're like, "What is wrong with us?" We're standing there on Main Street crying, and the kids are just happy dancing, looking at us, and we're crying like somebody just died.
Yeah, I've seen that show a couple times. My family has never seen it, so they'll see it for the first time over Thanksgiving.
That's awesome.
Weekend. So that'll be cool. But so super excited about that, obviously. So I apologize to anybody who hates Disney or Disney World for the last 5 minutes of this conversation. But like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. But before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? Where do they get all the good information?
My link tree will be in the show notes. You can get everything there. But I'm on social. My social handle is thejonbeebe.com, TheJonBeebe.com. Everything else is in the show notes. Our website is bebesbargains.com. That's where you can find our travel and our other company. And then if you want to engage with me in coaching, just go to bebescoaching.com. But again, it's all in the show notes.
And they can download the app too, right?
Yeah, we have Bebe's Bargains mobile app that launched 1.5 years ago. It's awesome. You can set notifications depending on what you're looking for, but check out that on iOS or Android.
I love it, man. Like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
I think I got into that in the episode, but my biggest moments of growth was, I think, making the decision to put a hard boundary up between myself and my parents. That was the biggest one, hands down.
Jon, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with my audience, and more importantly, being my friend through this crazy journey of life, man. You make me want to be a better person. So thank you so much for being you. This was great.
Dude, it was awesome. You're a great guy, Justin. Thanks for having me. And hey, those that are listening, thanks for being here till the end.